I don't really think that AI is going to replace all the humans. I mean, it's so far from perfect. It's a lot more hyped up. I mean, it's great. It definitely augments people. But
well, you're one of the people at the forefront of the field, nearly have a PhD in this. It's one of these things where even if what Kat is saying is true, which it might be, we don't know for sure, right? We have to dare to embrace the future. We have to be able to say that we have agency. We can survive whatever's coming. This is America. We had no problem surviving the Industrial Revolution. We had no problem surviving the electricity revolution. We'll have no problem surviving the AI revolution because we can. Yeah. That's the American spirit. And we'll have to deal with the robotic revolution at some point, really changing the way manufacturing and things work. I'm sure if you guys saw Elon Musk's recent robots, they look incredible. And one has to think immediately, well, what good is there going to be for me in a warehouse or something like that if this robot can do my job 100 times better? It never complains. It never wants cash. It never wants healthcare. It's you could treat it the way you want to treat it. It's always going to be working. That is a little scary, but we get, you could say the same thing about a horse. You could say the same thing about, who's going to take care of the horses? What's going to happen to my stable? Those aren't things people worry about anymore.
It's not so much it is the volume of change, but it's also the speed of change, right? It's how fast these changes are going to happen. And what do you think Congress could actually do to soften the blow of how quick that change is happening today?
Yeah, I don't think it's a blow. I think we should accelerate it. I think that the AI is going to upskill people. I can ask ChatGPT questions that I don't have to call a lawyer to ask. If that makes my lawyer, and the market for legal advice more competitive, then I think that's great. I think that that we can
100%. But I'm saying,
yeah,
if you were in Congress, like, what would you do to?
I would stop
that.
I would
change quicker.
I don't know if I can make it quicker because I think it's going to happen no matter what. And I think even if somebody tries to stop it, it'll happen like the Volstead Act and other things like that, where you really can't force a market to not exist. A black market will pop up. We make jokes about it in the AI community that people are going to be trading neural networks in blind alleys, under sports coats or under trench coats. And I think that, ultimately, to have this unbelievable innovation that's like some people in the AI community call it the God machine. It's not quite that spectacular like Harrison says, but it is amazing after programming for 30 years and then watching this computer program like start to think. It is really incredible from a philosophical, almost religious, but of course technical perspective that we've been able to do this. And that's what Americans do. And guess where all this stuff has come from? A lot of it's come from our country, that our intrepid people that get together and push the world forward. We created the space race. We did a lot of this stuff in AI and software thanks to America. I have to give credit to our Canadian friends who have done a lot of this too. You can't talk about AI without talking about Canada. They got a couple of lucky wins there. But all these wonderful AI companies are based in America. OpenAI that went boldly and discovered this in conjunction with Google as well, who really discovered it. OpenAI commercialized it. Amazing success. And we have to nurture that. We have to reward that. We have to, and we do. Look at Sam Altman, who, when he was fired inadvertently kind of a month ago, we all saw how much of a rock star he's become. A well-known tech journalist visited with Sam and went on tour, if you will, with OpenAI's team, and they said he said that he saw nothing like this since the Beatles. And it really is the case that these are the people. Look at Elon Musk. He's our rock star of 2023. He's the Jimi Hendrix. He's the Rolling Stones.
Dude, I totally agree with you, but I'm saying and I'm team 100%. But from a policy perspective,
I think if somebody wanted to regulate,
how do we implicate that?
It's simple. If somebody wanted to regulate AI, I would say no. And I would only have 1 out of 400 votes, right? But I think would have the command, presence to influence other folks in Congress, because again, I'm an active software engineer, whereas the average person in Congress may not know how to spell artificial intelligence or understand what a convolutional neural network is or something like that. They may look at me and say, Martin, what do you make of all this? And the same way I might look at somebody who's a decorated Army veteran, I might say, hey, do you really think we should go into this war or not, or what should we do? I might whisper that to them, even though to the constituents I'm supposed to appear all knowing and wise. I might ask somebody who has experience in this to say, I trust you, I know you, let me hear what you have to say. So hopefully some of that expertise can be brought to bear here, because I think we're going to create more jobs. This is a great form of equality for people who didn't go to college. A lot of the young black men I met in prison, they all said, look, Martin, I wanted to be like you, but I didn't have any skill. I didn't have any education, and there's no way for me to catch up. I didn't study math, so now I can barely do my fractions, and you want me to study calculus. It doesn't make sense. And through AI, through things like OpenAI, you can take people like that and really give them an equalizing chance in life that they never had before. I went to City.
To Kat's point, if this is all going to be, we're all software engineers in the end, or 90% of the code is written by AI, and then you put your 10% on it, or whatever it looks like. How? Again, I'm just trying to press you a little bit.
No, it's fine.
Are we going to do to implement to enable that?
I think you're going to see some of the most amazing innovations accelerate. For example, the Google DeepMind code, under the strength of DeepMind, it was able to solve a new math theorem, which may not have ever happened before. Under AI's control, chemists may be able to synthesize new molecules faster or more easily. Under AI,
I don't want to excite you too much, Martin, but I asked ChatGPT to come up with chemically stable variants of common drugs.
It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while before ChatGPT can synthesize anything. But I think that when it comes to that's a lofty goal. But we all thought these were lofty goals 5 years ago. If you told me you'd have, I started an NLP company. Very few people know this. In 2015, called Simple App, and my goal of Simple App was just to get NLP tools into the hands of my deal makers in pharma, so that they can study more molecules faster and faster, so we can make deals faster. And this is what Vivek Ramaswamy did. We had basically the same business model. He hired about 10 times as many deal makers. We call them BD people. I see my former head of BD was in here a second ago. And these deal makers go around the world to universities, pharma companies, whoever has interesting new discovery, and they go make a deal. And Vivek hired 100 people to do this, which I had one of the biggest teams in all of pharma, including Pfizer, Merck, and Novartis. And Vivek just toppled it all by hiring several hundred people to go scour the world for molecules. And he made a fortune doing it, as did I. And I think that, I needed NLP workers to help sift through this gigantic amount of information. I said, let me get NLP to help me, and let me get AI to help me. People don't even talk about NLP anymore. It's now sort of been subsumed into large language model studies. And, and so, and so the point is those people are now sort of turbocharged, and they can find the asset, the drug, the potential cure, going from company to industry to patient. What's really important is the person who has osteogenesis imperfecta, a good friend of mine who's dying of this terrible bone disease. There's no drug for this in the world at all. And the reason that it's never, sort of had a drug for it is possibly because there is a drug for it in some obscure Australian university, and nobody's ever figured out to call them and go develop it. And with NLP, these search tools now become powerful. So every industry, that's just one small example, but every industry can be reshaped by AI and made more efficient, made more competitive. So we just go to the next level. So yeah, software engineering is going to be a really tricky thing in the next 10 years, because what took 10 people to make a website in React really functional front end to back end may take one person half their time of half a job. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? What about those other 9.5 people? Well, I think those other 9.5 people can now go to the next level and say, well, I couldn't do optimization of, an important program before because it's too complicated. I don't know all this stuff. But now with GPT, I kind of can. I have this shot in the arm. And now we're going to have super optimized programs. And then when those people get automated, then the next challenge is going to be things like, well, how do I make this computer, even cheaper or even faster or whatever it is? We can't even imagine what the next steps are. And I think the imagination.
Something you said.
Let's just finish real quick, Lasan.
Yeah.
The imagination leads us to think there's nothing left, and that we're going to have a society barren of people that have nothing to do. And I'm not trying to make fun of this, because Catherine's point is really serious and it's important. But I think that because we can't imagine what comes next, we just see the React developer out of a job because ChatGPT can do React better now than React developers can. And what's going to happen to the React developer who is making $180,000 a year, paying good tax money, taking care of 4 or 5 kids, and now that React developer is automated away? Well, I don't think that React developer is just going to sit on their hands and society is going to go broke because GPT is taking their job away. I think that React developer is going to say, maybe I should be a Verilog developer. Maybe I should make FPGAs. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that. And it's just going to require them to up their game with the tools that we created. One of the things I was imagining is, okay, what does that React developer actually do? And I was thinking about actually AR and VR. And it's very, very hard to make tools for AR, VR. If you've ever tried to program for those things, you kind of don't even know where to start. There's this big 3D landscape that's really hard to work on. But with AI now, you can actually make 3D landscapes and assets with the push of a button, which you couldn't do before. And now we may see this metaverse, idea actually get built and actually like really exist. And we might actually enjoy a VR world that we couldn't enjoy before that will increase productivity, will increase enjoyment, will increase jobs for, as Kat said earlier. Where are the people who do creative things going to go? That's a new venue for them as well. And we're actually becoming more creative. More and more, we have creators, a whole area of the world that didn't exist before. It's entertainment without the fame. That's what a creator is to me. It's entertainment without Hollywood. And I think that even people who are programmers, there's a bunch of programmer influencers, another word we use, content creators that are programmers. And if you were to ask me, you could make a living being a programming influencer, I would have laughed at you and said, there's no freaking way. But these are people who make videos about how to program, get you excited about programming. And I know one that makes $1 million a year teaching.
Developers.
Exactly. And I think that, those influencer possibilities, they're not for everyone. Like Kat said, you still have to make it the same way you might have to make it in Hollywood. Not everyone is destined to make a ton of money being an influencer, but I do think that we're going to see AI allow more people to sort of get to a place where we can build cooler and nicer things. So that was just a quick thought. Bitcoin, did you want to ask something? Yes, I'm a big fan of self-driving cars. And again, I would just ask you to think about the tragedy of losing a loved one to something so senseless. I lost a loved one recently, my father, to heart disease. And it's so painful. It's the most painful experience of my life. And I've had some doozies. And when you think about a child or a teenager losing their life to a drunk driver, and that we could stop that, but for a lot of vested interests, a lot of money, a lot of bureaucracy, I think we're there on self-driving. I took some Waymos. I had a Waymo engineer treat me and tour me their facilities and their programs and their devices, and it was really impressive, and it works. And we could save so much money. Again, we're looking at this deficit of $17 trillion, and we're thinking about how we get our way out of this. And it's through productivity. It's through economic gains. It's something I understand uniquely, I think, unfortunately, and that a lot of people in DC don't. And it's one of these things that, between the human loss of life, that's just so catastrophic. I know it seems abstract to you and me, but if you've ever met somebody that lost their lives in a car accident, really something that makes no sense. It's a tragedy that's so hard to understand. I'm having a hard time understanding why my father passed away, and I know why. This is the way he wanted to live his life. He didn't want to eat healthy or exercise, and he lived to 69. And so, even though it's a tragedy to me, it kind of makes sense. It doesn't make sense that anyone in 2023 or 2024 or 2025 will lose their life to a machine, especially due to drunk driving, which is a larger cause of some of these accidents. And I think Waymo and other companies that are doing this are doing God's work, and they've created huge amounts of jobs of people that work at Waymo. They're going to create freedom for people that are drivers now to do something else and to increase productivity even more in the economy. And I feel like, people like the politicians in New York's one of the most corrupt state governments you'll ever see. And, we've got a lot of reputation for that, where we've had a lot of our senior people in government and state government in New York go to prison for bribery and things like that. And it'd be a big problem for some of these people if self-driving cars existed. but it'd be great for America. And we're supposed to be the country of the future with all the new technologies. And this is something that I fear we're going to lag behind yet again. So I'm really excited for it. And I want to build the America of the future so that we can't go broke. We can't end up like Europe. None of this stuff will happen. It can't even be in our conscious because we're so far ahead. And again, I feel like AI has a big role to play there. I think crypto probably is a big role to play there. If you've ever sent money internationally, it's very hard to do. I've been a business person my whole life, and sending money from the US to another country is pulling teeth. It is one of the hardest things in the world. With crypto, with USDC, and even Bitcoin, you can send money in 5 minutes, any amount of money. And you know exactly where it is. In real life, you have to send a wire. It takes several days. The banks don't know where the money is in the interim, and it's a mess. So it's really exciting that crypto allows us to do that. Crypto's got some problems. It's not perfect. It's not useful for everything. It's not blockchain for everything. But it is nice technology, but it scares government. It scares government so much, they don't want it. They want to avoid it. They want to tax it. They want to regulate it. They want to know, most importantly, where's your money coming from and where's it going? Because they're nosy. You have no privacy. In fact, there are people in the government that say, point blank, the $100 bill is the tool of the criminal. Why? Because you're not supposed to have $100 bills lying around. You're supposed to have your money in a bank that will quickly answer the government if they want to know what you're doing with your money and how. And it's a terrible invasion of privacy. It's not what our founding fathers would have wanted. And it's created, I think somebody in my chat here said that Elizabeth Warren is a shill for Jamie Dimon. I think that's right. I think that the entire government is a shill for JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the most compliant bank. They do what the government wants when they want. And it limits us and it robs us of our freedom to the point where you can't do anything without banks and the government knowing exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. Bitcoin changes that game. And of course, there's some downsides to that. Does that mean a drug dealer can deal drugs more easily and get away with it? Yes, it does. But what are we willing to sacrifice for our own financial freedom? Are we willing to sacrifice a little bit of other things happening, the negative consequences? And I think that is for us to decide, not for Elizabeth Warren necessarily to decide. And I think that most people prefer the freedom that will increase some risks if they're tolerable than vice versa, the lack of freedom and immediately being told by people who aren't even elected, like the SEC saying, no, can't have crypto, too dangerous. And the same thing with AI. More and more people want to regulate AI because it's too dangerous. And I think we just have to go forward with these new technologies where they lead us. It's not the government's job to stop every single thing. It's not the government's job to have a whistle every time you want to lift up your finger. No, wait, there's a government employee telling you we got to stop you. That's not the kind of country any of us want to live in. And it's not the kind of country that made America what it is today. So I feel like, destroying these regulations, ripping out pages from the law books, and stopping this kind of like weird, kleptocracy we've created. And kleptocracy is a strong word, not often used for America. But I think if you look around at how much our government employees make, how much the administrators make, we've created an industry within America that is government-based. It's probably 10% of our GDP is just sloshing around government. And that's wasteful GDP, right? That's not actually creating any productivity. It's removing productivity. And we could really unleash our country's potential.
Sorry, just to reiterate your point a little bit, like I used to work at the largest medtech company, and it was fascinating to me to see how therapies would always go to Europe, 5 years before America, because they have the model of, prove to me, or, you can use this, but then, if it proves to be dangerous later, we'll stop it. In America, it's, here's 3 levels of studies and then prove it.
It's so funny. I had a healthcare hedge fund. We were mostly focused on drugs. But we followed all the medical device companies from Medtronic, Boston Scientific, St. Jude, Abbott, Covidien, you name it. And I would follow stents and pacemakers and every kind of medical device you can imagine. So I know a little bit about that space. And one of the things that is funny is exactly what you said, which is the first place all these medtech companies go is Europe because they have lax regulations, which I think they're closing, by the way, on medical devices.
Which is also hilarious.
Yeah.
Because it's Europe.
Right, exactly. It's the one thing that people that gets a lot of development there, and we're very careful about medical devices. I personally do think we should be. I actually like our FDA regulation. I know a lot of people in the FDA. I've worked with FDA my whole life. They're good people. They're not deep staters. They're not people interested in politics. They're people interested in medicine. They love medicine. You meet with Bob Temple, right? You meet with Janet Woodcock. These are Rich Pazder, who's the oncology head. He is a he does not care about politics at all. All he cares about is cancer, and he's a wonderful guy. And he's allowed some cancer drugs to get FDA approval in weeks instead of years. And it takes a really responsible person like that, who also willing to take some risks for people who are dying of cancer. And we have greatly moved the ball in cancer through PD-1 inhibitors and many other drugs. So I think that we have to respect and nurture our drug industry and our medical device industry, which has made, by the way, America the envy of the whole world. There's no place in the world that does more for medical innovation than America. And for some reason, we kind of spit in the eye of it. And maybe I'm the reason to blame for that. And I feel terrible about that because, the drug companies of America, the scientists who have cured cystic fibrosis, who have elongated, the lifespan of people with colorectal cancer or lung cancer is now a disease you can survive. And of course, there are red flags. There are problems like OxyContin is a good one. There are many others. I think the blame tends to lie in other places. I'm not saying the drug industry is perfect. It's far from perfect. But I do think if you think about the men and women that work at Amgen, that work at Genentech, that work at Pfizer and Merck, that are making huge amounts of money, they're part of our economy. They're brilliant people. And we have to respect the fact that American innovation, the cure for cystic fibrosis happened in California. Cystic fibrosis was a lethal illness. A friend of mine died of it in high school, 19 years old. We were all going to college, thinking about our futures. He was thinking about his funeral. And it's a disease that was impossible to crack. Everyone said, no way. Nobody can cure cystic fibrosis. It's too complicated. And a company called Vertex said, we're going to try. And they made a miracle. And it was unbelievable success. And nobody in the world even bothered. And those people at Vertex, to me, they're like Tom Brady to me. They're like, a Super Bowl winner, because my friend would have been alive. And I have a friend in our community, I think she was here earlier, who is alive because of Vertex. I don't know if she's still here. But a good friend who I just met through, the internet community. And she is on the Vertex medicine. She's 38 years old. People did not live to be 38 with cystic fibrosis before. And an American drug company spent a lot of money, took a big risk, and they made it big. And why shouldn't they be rewarded? Why shouldn't that person at Vertex be more famous, in my opinion, than Tom Brady, be more successful? I think they should. And I think they should be able to charge whatever they want for their medical miracle, particularly because we have a generic industry that will make that drug really cheap, really fast. So they only get a couple years to make their money. And then that pill will be very, very cheap. It will be a couple dollars very soon. So why not, let that company be rich? Who should be rich? Should it be...
No, I totally agree, Mark.
I
love that.
I'll finish one quick point. I know you know this industry really well. But who should be rewarded by society? Kim Kardashian? Should it be a politician who writes a lot of books? I think it's that person who saved my friend's life. And the next person that's going to cure Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the next person, maybe more in your industry, who's going to make an ICD for my poor father who died of a heart attack. If he had an ICD, maybe a cutaneous ICD or something like that could be on the outside of the skin instead of having to break open the sternum and put it in the chest, or however they do it now, I guess transcatheter. If my father had an ICD, he'd still be here. He'd get to meet his grandchildren. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So it'd be nice if we lauded medical innovation the way we should. For example, AI, as long as we have problems in our country, we will have jobs and solutions with AI. Alzheimer's disease has been the toughest nut to crack. If you know somebody who has Alzheimer's disease, you're one of half of America. I mean, we'll all get older and get Alzheimer's, but there's no way to really treat this disease. And pharma has failed because there's no good incentive for pharma. It takes 20, 30 years to fix Alzheimer's. That's actually a job for the federal government. That's a way that we could increase our innovation and increase our success, is if we started a basically Manhattan Project to cure Alzheimer's, because it's outside of the ambit of any pharmaceutical company. The biggest pharmaceutical company maybe spends 5 to 10 billion on R&D in a year. We may need to spend $50 billion a year to cure Alzheimer's. It's beyond the pharmaceutical industry's capability. It's beyond the patent law that a drug could last that long. So I think that's something that a Manhattan Project that would actually be very worthwhile for our country. We would save hundreds of billions of dollars in medical bills that Medicaid and Medicare is going to have to foot the bill for. So what do you think, Zed? You're part of the fantastic medical innovation industry that the U.S. has created.
Yeah, no, I love that. And to further your point, I think, the big worry today about low birth rates, right? This could be a solve for that. If people live another healthy 100 years, you can get a lot of more productivity out of your, lifespan. But I guess to that question, if you were elected, what would be the top 3 priorities you'd have in healthcare to forward this